So not the weekly chart. Yeah, weekly chart is really for me to see the big picture and plot the levels. And then I'll zoom down to 4 hours and trade.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so hi guys. I'll just share my screen and we'll talk a little bit of the fundamental side of things. So I do have just slightly differing views with Lloyd, but my bias is towards the medium. It's more medium term, I would say at this point. I'm looking at the Swiss for next week. So there are some key drivers, for the Swiss. A couple of currency pairs that I want to look mainly, it's the Swiss currency pair. So if we scroll through the Swiss, basically I am a little bit more bullish on the Swiss. If we do look at the indicators, the economic indicators, the Swiss has some numbers that actually is quite it puts it almost at the top of the list in terms of where it is on overall economic health, right? So overall, the Swiss has one of the lower interest rate bar at 1.75%. They recently raised it to from 1.5. Inflation index about 1.6, unemployment 1.9. What this kind of indicates, it tells us that the Swiss has probably a slightly more stable economic market where they are at. GDP for quarterly GDP is still at 0.3, so it's still kind of positive. Now, if you compare the statistics across the major economies, right, it really does seem that the Swiss economy is kind of more or less, I would say, flattish. When I say flattish, I really mean that the interest rates are not too high, inflation is controlled, unemployment is low. So what it means that the economic climate over there is pretty stable. With that stability, it will perform as a risk-off currency. And also, if we compare it, what I really am wanting to pick is strongest versus weakest. So the Swiss having the healthiest figures. So imagine these numbers are like your blood pressure numbers, your glucose numbers or whatever, your sugar levels in your body, etc. Right? So economic health-wise, the Swiss does have very healthy statistics as a baseline. And what I do want to kind of compare is the other currency pairs where unemployment is a little bit high, inflation is not quite going down as best it seems, and those other economic numbers will be the Kiwi as well as potentially the pound. All right. Now for the Kiwi, right, there's a couple of factors that I am looking at it. One, we look at the numbers for it. Okay, this is the Kiwi over here. So the Kiwi has been kind of floating in negative quarterly GDP figures for quite a while now. Despite having really high interest rates at 5.5, inflation is 6%. It has gone down from the past, but I wouldn't say it's one of the best. And of course, we have New Zealand at 3.6% unemployment figure. So if you look at unemployment figures specifically, right, you can see that unemployment has popped up slightly in the last reading. This kind of tells us, there's something going on down there. The numbers aren't quite as robust as it seems. If we look at the GDP growth rate, the quarterly GDP growth rate is now the second quarter in the negative. So of course, I'll be interested in the next reading. If it does continue to have a negative reading over here, then I think the Swiss will have more downside potential. So that's for the Swiss. For the pound, right, I think I will use the seasonality charts to kind of highlight a little bit. If we look at the pound as the seasonality, on a seasonality front, from August to at least mid-August, there is a very downward push. All right. So in the short term, right, I do think there is more downside push in terms of seasonality for the pound. And to support this, right, I would also look at the economic numbers from the pound side, which is over here. All right. So at 5.25%, again, one of the higher interest rates comparatively among the rest of the economies. Bearing in mind that US is 5.5, so UK is 5.25, is just a notch under the US. And if we just compare the US and the UK market in terms of its numbers, you have 5.5 interest rates for the US, you have 5.25% for the UK, but look at inflation. Inflation for the UK is almost double that of the US. And of course, unemployment figures are pretty high as well. If I click into unemployment figures specifically, what I do see over here is I see also a 0.2% jump in unemployment figures in the last reading. So there is some, at least short-term weakness in the pound I would see coming up. So specifically, what am I looking to trade next at least 1 or 2 weeks? I'm looking for most of the pound pairs. Now, Aussie Swiss, okay, I'm just going to run through all the Swiss pairs and then specifically focus on the pound Swiss and the dollar Swiss and the Kiwi Swiss. So these are the three. Now the dollar Swiss, right, has already kind of gone past where we're at. I would say that it's really going to be very hard as a trader to want to trade into this space because we are reaching towards the extreme. So I think Aussie Swiss is more of an eye on the technicals instead. While there is still some strength in the Swiss, I think it's pretty much risky trading towards the tail end of it. I believe based from a technical perspective, there will be a lot of buyers sitting at this bottom over here thinking that that might be the bottom of the range. So a bit of caution for the Swiss. It has been going one directionally for quite a while. CAD Swiss, now CAD Swiss again, not my favorite pair to trade, particularly because it also is towards the bottom end of the bar. If I kind of zoom out, you can see the CAD Swiss has been making new lows. So from a technical perspective, right, it is really, really difficult to want to aggressively go short over here because we will be going into new lows territory, right? So what I am looking for is unless this price is broken and retested to give us a confirmation towards the downside, then I would say there is some room to go to, but this is a question mark area. Whether or not governments will come in to intervene at this region when it kind of breaks below all the lows, and whether the news will come and pick it up over here, I wouldn't know. So CAD Swiss, not again, a very it's more of a technical trade as opposed to a fundamental trade because of where it's at. All right. So while fundamentally I'm very bullish, I'm pretty much bullish on the Swiss. Technically, the story isn't quite lining up, and therefore we have to have a little bit of caution in where we're trading it. Now, since Swiss yen is slightly more favorable for me, despite I think for those of you who follow me on the Sunday fundamentals at night, you guys know I've been bullish on the Swiss yen for quite a while. And of course, it has already broken its previous highs of 1980. So we are in new high territory. And this is what I meant for currency pairs that break either above or below, making new highs or new lows. So the Swiss yen has already made new highs, right? If I'm on a weekly time frame over here. So what it does mean for us is because we're new highs, right? There is a lot of upside question mark involving over here, right? There is a lot of upside question mark over here. There is a decent probability that the momentum will take the Swiss yen above and beyond, but there's also just as high a probability where governments will intervene because they are so-called off the charts. All right, so Swiss yen with a bit of caution. I do believe to just focus more on the technical entries. If you have a trend trading strategy that gives you a long entry, take it with a bit of caution, take it with the proper risk management, and you guys should be fine. But I am definitely more comfortable going Swiss yen long as opposed to Swiss yen short, and will be more inclined to wait for those retracements before buying back in. All right, but I would say that the profit taking is going to be very near because we are in an area, in a question mark area where I don't know where the ceiling is. We have broken beyond the ceiling. Euro Swiss is I generally don't like trading Euro Swiss because it's very choppy. Plus the Swiss and the Euro are slightly correlated, so I'm going to ignore this currency pair. All right, I don't quite like it. Now, Pound Swiss, what interests me is because it is also trading at one of a very decent, strong support level. My interest will be coming in if on the shorter time frames, I can see a break and retest pattern. We do have some leeway downwards. This is October 2022 low. So there is potential for this to break towards the downside, and I will kind of be a little bit patient to wait for that break below this, I think about 1.10 level to 1.1011, maybe somewhere around this area. So I will be interested if price breaks and retests below this, but if it meanders over here, I would say trading a bit of caution. The strategy you would take to trade this currency pair on the Pound Swiss is more towards a breakout strategy. I think breakout strategies will be slightly advantageous here. Price has been ranging and consolidating for quite many months right now. So if you are a range trader, you can pick it back up small, slightly over here, but I'm more inclined to a downside for Pound Swiss, and mainly because of where the pound is in terms of, at least for the next 2 weeks until mid-August, I would prefer to short the Pound Swiss. Not a big fan of longing the pound in the medium term, all right, just based on economic statistics right now, provided there is no policy changes coming from the UK side. Kiwi Swiss, Kiwi Swiss, again, it's another really difficult pair to trade this week. Last week, I was looking for the same break and retest position over here. Price kind of came up in this 2 weeks candle over here. So I'm actually on the weekly time frame. Let me show you what it looks like on the monthly time frame. So on the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, this is actually what it looks like. All right. So we actually had 5 days. This is Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So these are the 5 candles for the last week candles that I am actually looking at. What price has already done, it has broken below and is now testing over here in last week's candle. So I'm really interested to see whether on a daily time frame, this momentum can continue towards the downside. All right. Again, we are trading at the extremes. So do take a little bit more caution when we are trying to look for those profit levels. On the weekly time frame, you can see a very, very potential strong support level over here. It's an untested support level since 2020. If I zoom out all the way, you can see that we are actually also reaching new lows. And of course, having new lows, there is going to be a bunch of traders who are probably going to try to buy up over here, buy the support level. So it's going to be, I think risk management is the key next week, where, if you are trading into new extremes, there is a good probability that price will have the momentum to break through the bottom, but there's a probability that price might consolidate and be a little bit more choppy. So a little bit of caution in your risk management tools next week. Finally, dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss, as you can see, dollar Swiss price has done the retracement over here. This looks a little bit like a break and retest. Again, the Swiss has been strong for quite a while, so we are trading near extremes. Again, I'm repeating myself like a broken record, but there is still some space towards the downside. However, risk management is the key again. I'm more inclined to trade dollar Swiss short. If I look on the daily time frame, you can see very nice break and retest. It's a question of whether or not this momentum on the daily time frame can take us below. All right, so I traditionally look for entries on the hourly and 4-hourly time frame with a larger bias on the daily time frame. So if again, if the setups appear on your shorter time frame, then take it with a bit of risk management. I think we should be fine. So that about concludes where I'm looking at. So generally, the pairs I will be looking at is bullish on the Swiss, bearish on the pound, the dollar, and the Kiwi. All right, and depending again on what is the setup. So that's all for me, and let me see if there is any questions. All right, guys. So no questions. I'll let you guys go. Hope you find this session helpful, and we will see you again when we see you, I guess.